What is the dumbest reason why someone at your workplace got fired? Story 1. Guy tried to hit on the girl that helped us clean up after closing time by inviting her to the back. For some fun times, just me and you, baby. Girl was 15 years old and the daughter of the owner. Story 2. A coworker infested the office with fleas, but he didn't get fired until he did it a second time. The first time it happened, the boss closed down the office and had an exterminator come in and told the guy, "Here's a laptop, you telecommute now." It turned out he lived in a trailer with over a dozen stray cats. He kept taking in these strays and just not doing anything for them. No shots, no flea treatments, not even a bath. So pretty soon, the whole place was infested with fleas. He just didn't realize how bad it was because he was on some cocktail of medications that made him smell odd. Apparently the smell made the fleas not want to bite him. They just got in his clothes and he carried them to work. After a few days, he was already complaining to my boss that the laptop didn't work right. My boss tried to send me to this guy's trailer to fix whatever was wrong, but I said I would rather quit than set foot in Fleapalooza 2012, so he told my coworker to just deal with it himself. A couple weeks later, the guy came into the office to pick up his paycheck. In the 30 seconds he was inside, he infested the place again. After that, everyone threw a fit. The boss only fired the guy to avoid a full-scale revolt. Story 3. New office assistant was asked to drop some laptops off at FedEx to be shipped. Come to find out, she literally just walked in, saw the line was too long, and just left them on the counter. She expected FedEx to know what to do with them. We have no idea what happened to them. They decided to keep her, which was a mistake because she ended up emailing all of our competitors highly sensitive information by mistake. Story 4. Dude I worked with at an outdoor retail store lit off a can of bear spray indoors during business hours. I wasn't there at the time, but as the outdoor supervisor, I got called in to deal with the mess. Thankfully, the idiot fired it into a corner behind the gear counter, so he mostly got himself. However, bear spray comes out in a kind of dense fog, unlike regular pepper spray that comes out in a stream. The whole store had to be evacuated, and it took like 4 bottles of neutralizer to get the carpet clean again. Dum-Dum claimed he dropped it by accident, but the security camera showed him very clearly popping the safety and hitting the thumb trigger. During his out-processing, the GM and I showed him the video and asked what was actually going through his head. He said, "I wanted to see how bad it was. It was really bad. The intrusive thoughts won, I guess." Last I heard, the dummy had bought a tow truck and started a towing business. Story 5. He pantsed a guy in the middle of the office. Literally pulled a co-worker's pants down in front of the full office. Underpants came along for the ride. The pantser was fired. The pantsy was off work for 6 weeks due to distress. Story 6. I work for the Canada Revenue Agency, and we are instructed to never look at our own file upon being hired and told in no uncertain terms that it will be immediately flagged and would be the end of your career. At least once a year, around tax season, I will get a memo reminding us of this because several people looked up their own file. Plugging your phone into your computer is also a big no-no because it can store information or compromise the network. I get yearly reminders about that too. I once watched a coworker plug her phone in. I told her to take it out, but it was too late and she was escorted out within the hour. Story 7. He just didn't log into work. It was a remote job. He was new. We weren't expecting a lot of him. But he wouldn't log in or respond to Teams messages asking how he was doing in an entire day. Honestly, pretty stupid, like, you don't even have to go to work. Story 8. I have a few from people I worked with. One guy stood at the bottom of the stairs and pretended he was fiddling with his phone, but was trying to get upskirt pictures of the women walking down. A woman coming down the stairs saw what he was doing and called security. That was a weird HR experience. The guy, who in previous interactions seemed pretty normal, was creepy as hell. Only time while I was there that we had to follow threat procedures. Didn't have to worry about him very long though, because the cops found a lot of those types of videos on his personal computer, and apparently some underage stuff too, so he got locked up. I had to fire a woman because she would not stop trying to get the people who reported to her to buy her kids' school fundraiser items. It was against company policy for managers to directly solicit, but there was a way to have an admin post things so that it was blinded. That way people didn't feel pressured to purchase things from the person responsible for their compensation increases and bonuses. There was a front desk admin at this one place where I worked, who was generally unpleasant, but very good at her job, so that wasn't enough to let her go. A data analyst who was on maternity leave came into the office with her baby. We all gathered near the front because it was a quick visit. I asked the data analyst how her husband was doing. Poor guy was in a car accident the week before. And the admin went off for 5 minutes about how could anyone ask about her husband when it was the woman who did all the work, and had to carry the baby and breastfeed and stay up all night when it cried. When she tired out, the CFO looked at the head of HR and said, "How about now?" Admin was gone within the hour. Story 9. My immediate supervisor planned a European vacation with her girlfriend for a year, got time off in writing, paid out $12,000 in advanced deposits, etc. 2 days before she was supposed to leave, the big boss said he was going on vacation, and she had to skip her European fully paid trip. She went anyway and got fired for it. Story 10. He took a turn too fast on the fork truck, got 2 wheels lifted off the ground. Supervisor told him to cut it out and drive safe. Safe? Safe? Nothing in this place is safe. And then he spent 20 minutes running around the plant floor, tripping alarms and setting off the emergency air horns to prove that none of it worked. All of it worked. He finally left when the super threatened to call the cops. Everyone was real confused about his outburst, until we found the half-empty bottle of tequila out behind the dumpster. Story 11. She already had a few trips to HR and then got moved to another department at another site. She went out to her car to go to lunch, then came back into the office. She then claimed someone put a note on her car in the parking lot that read, "Get out of town, racial epithet." Hands note to supervisor. She got loud in the office area, started to list off names of who she suspected, and everyone heard what was going on. HR pulls her into a meeting later that afternoon and says, "We had security pull the video recording of the parking lot for the first 4 hours of the day. Do you wish to change your story?" She was let go immediately. Story 12. A male co-worker hid under a co-worker's desk first thing in the morning. Unfortunately for him, he didn't realize a desk swap had happened the day before. Woman sits down on the chair, and that's when he chose to scare her. She injured her abdominal area on the underside of the desk because she was 7 months pregnant. She moved to that desk to be closer to the washrooms. Instead, she went on sick leave for the rest of her pregnancy because of the resulting injury trauma. Story 13. I saw someone get let go because they didn't have a good attitude. For context, myself and a few other people had just been hired for an entry-level accounting job. Those first few weeks, months were rough. The CFO had a tendency of greeting newer people without telling them who he was. One would never expect this guy to be in C-suite by the way he dressed. He didn't even have a LinkedIn profile, so unless one dug around, it was hard to figure out who he was. Anyways, he stopped by our pod and greeted us, asked us how we were doing. One guy made the mistake of being honest and said that he was tired, and not in a cheery way. I didn't blame him. We were all tired. The next day, this guy was let go. I overheard later from a gossiping supervisor that the CFO hated bad attitudes and made it a point to remove them from the company whenever possible. Since then, I have been extra guarded about how I respond to questions whenever I join a new company until I learn who to trust. Story 14. A lady lost her wallet, and someone turned it in. When she picked it up from security, she noticed $200 was missing from the wallet. Security replayed the camera videos, and a security guard that found the wallet had taken the money out and pocketed it. This was Simone Biles's mom this happened to. An employee dropped his wallet outside of the cafeteria doors, and a security guard watched on camera another employee finding the wallet a bit later and taking money out of the wallet and walking away. A bank teller, previous co-worker, was faking referrals to bankers by saying she spoke to clients about getting them to sit with a banker to open savings accounts, credit cards, etc., when the clients were just considered walk-ins. An overnight manager did not know her drawer was going to be audited the following morning and left work with $300 from her drawer. Management still needed to do the audit, and she did not return the money in time. God, I have so many. Story 15. I work at a factory. We use a temporary worker system where a separate agency will do the hiring process. They work at the factory, and usually if they show up and do a passable job, they get hired. The bar is low for a reason, though. We had these 2 utility workers get into some kind of sports-related argument on the line one day. One is temp, one is not. They start to get loud enough that people are looking around corners to see what's up. Temp guy does a thing where it looks like he is doing an exercise to touch his toes and pulls a knife out of his shoes. He sends the people nearest to him running in panic as he attacks the other utility guy. Knifey gets pulled to the ground and disarmed. Cops get called, but he runs away before they show up. Immediately fired, and I never found out honestly if he was arrested or not. The guy who was attacked almost lost his job anyway because of a bullshit no-tolerance police. Story 16. Dude made a coworker uncomfortable by asking her out and not taking no for an answer. She mentioned something to HR in passing, and they jumped on it. He was told to not contact her for any reason until HR can work out what to do. basically just over the weekend. He contacts her and got fired on the spot. I talked with him about it after, and he just did not understand what he did wrong. Worst part is he was planning on showing up to a work event, even though he was fired. Thankfully, he at least took my advice to not do that. Story 17. He brought cough drops into the worksite. Now this might seem minor, but I work for a company that breeds rodents for laboratory testing. The top concern, after the welfare of our animals, is biosecurity. When I get to work in the morning, I strip completely naked, pass through a timed locking shower, and then dress in sterile clothes provided by the company. The only items we are allowed to bring through the showers with us are prescription eyewear or hearing aids. Any other item, unless specially authorized by management, is an automatic firing. Can't even wear my wedding ring or simple stud earrings. I know the dude knew this because they are very clear about it, and he'd worked there for years. I guess he just thought if he tucked it behind the spare uniform in his cubby, nobody would know. But our manager happened to come inside that day. He saw the bag, asked whose cubby it was, and that was that. The really sad thing was that this was at the beginning of COVID. So even if he wasn't sick with COVID, all he had to do was tell management that he had a bad cough, and they would have given him time off with pay until he got better. He threw away a steady, well-paying job in the middle of a pandemic because, I don't know, I guess he was too proud to call out sick. Story 18. This was very long ago, but one young kid thought it would be funny to put a hot dog through his pants zipper and showing a waitress his penis with it. She thought it was absurd, but not enough to tell management on him. Waitress would later tell this story to one of the higher-ups while they were just hanging out outside of work over drinks. The lady didn't take too kindly to the story and decided to pursue it further and got the dude fired. Story 19. The place I worked at is famous for its Advantage card, a loyalty card scheme. A guy I worked with fraudulently added 75 pounds worth of points onto his own card using his own till login at our own store. Sometimes we got sent to other stores to cover shifts. It's dumb, because it couldn't have been more traceable if he had a big neon fucking sign saying, "I'm committing fraud." Whilst certain staff have the power to manually add Advantage card points to a card, any amount greater than 20 pounds worth gets flagged to head office automatically. The store manager is then called upon to account for it. This is well known among staff. Dude added £75 in one go. Dude added it to his own card taken out in his own name. Anyone can apply for one of these cards and you don't need to provide ID or even really valid details. Dude used his own till login to process it all. Even if it wasn't fraudulent and wasn't for a silly amount, we cannot add points to our own cards under any circumstances. We have to get another employee to do it. He was arrested, boots counted as theft and prosecuted as a matter of policy, and sacked 2 weeks before Christmas. Story 20. Worked at a place that rotated new staff constantly. Here's a few I saw get sacked. 1. Fly tipped his rubbish from a job install, whole van load, down a country lane, left all information on all the boxes, then claimed he took it to the recycling place, but they followed him and dumped it down a country lane. He was on a tracked van and drove down the lane it was found at. 2. Crashed the forklift into the warehouse door, complained he was too hot and couldn't cope, then started punching himself in the head. Left and never came back. 3. Sat down and watched Jeremy Kyle in the staff room every day for 2 weeks, didn't do any work, and was sacked. 4. Wouldn't do any work, sat there eating food from the breakfast van every day, and destroyed his desk by drilling holes into it or stabbing screwdrivers through it. 5. Stole a stupid amount of Logitech equipment from the warehouse, posted it only on eBay with his skate in the background that had his name written on, then claimed it wasn't him, stole around $40,000 worth of equipment. 6. Walked up to a female member of staff, put his rear end basically on her arm and farted, didn't want to do any work, and was sacked after one day. 7. Attended site after doing cocaine the night before, was drug tested and failed, obviously. Staff said if you don't want to fail the test, then walk out, but he did it anyway. 8. Walked in and quit instantly with no notice. Pissed into the back of his van over all the stock that had to be binned. Used to piss into his van a lot, so there was jellified piss all over the place. 9. General manager new to the company walked in and told all the women they aren't qualified to do their jobs. Sacked instantly. 10. Decided to buy a pumpkin from the shop and try carve it in the office with a knife, then said to the top manager, "Who are you?" When she asked what he was doing, 11. One guy didn't like a woman in his office. She was meant to train under him. Made constant complaints about her and refused to train her whilst saying, "I don't want a fucking woman in my office." Went on for a while with constant arguing and she was sacked. Found out later on when she came to hand the keys into me with a big smile on her face that they paid her $20K not to sue the company. 12. Engineer didn't want to work for the company anymore, decided to smash his van into the back of an old lady's car, break his laptop and his phone all within a couple of days, then was sacked off. No idea why he didn't just leave.